16 hours after chewing even 500 milligrams of vitamin C or 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, their natural killer cells in close to 90% of them went up by 3 to 10 folds.
Wow.
I don't believe if there is any single factor can do that job. And so therefore, I believe vitamin C is one of the most important factor for our immune function.
Welcome to the Hope and Help podcast, where we talk about science and science-based tools for fatigue and chronic illness. I'm your host, Haylie Pomroy. I'm a #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Fast Metabolism Diet, a leading health and wellness expert, a PhD student in Neuro-Immunology, and a fierce advocate for those in need of a little bit of help and hope. Today, we're going to be talking about autoimmune disorders. Apparently, 81% of autoimmune disorders affect women. What we find in fatigue and chronic illness is that so many times our body has these autoantibodies. Our bodies are not only maybe fighting other diseases, but they're fighting ourselves. So I brought in an expert that we lean into quite a bit clinically, and that is the Dr. Vojdani. Dr. Vojdani is a microbiologist. He's a clinical immunologist. He's known for his research on environmental triggers, right, in complex disease. So what was the stressor? What tipped the body into that negative direction of disease? He's developed over 350 antibody assays, so ways to detect what's going on in your body. He holds 17 U.S. patents. He's authored more than 200 articles on this subject, and he's published 2 books. He serves as the CEO of Immunosciences Lab, as well as the chief science advisor for Cyrix labs that, and we'll talk about this today, can help us understand how your body is responding to the autoimmune disease, what's triggering the autoimmune disease, and really what to do about it. He has received numerous awards, including the Linus Pauling Award, to just name a few. So without further ado, Dr. Vojdani, I have been reading statistics. I have thrived through, not survived, an autoimmune disorder. I have been reading the recent statistics on autoimmunity, the large percentage of autoimmunity in women, how it plays this tremendous role in so many other peripheral or comorbidities or peripheral diseases. But I asked you a question as we were starting, which is, at the end of this podcast, if there was the most important thing that we all walked away with understanding, what would that be?
If I'll choose only one, that will be that among the role of environmental triggers, toxic chemicals plays the most important role in development of autoimmune diseases.
When you say that, it just gives me absolute chills. I was able to kind of reverse engineer what was going on with myself, and I found really high levels of lead and mercury, but also an insecticide called malathion. And I knew I was living in California at the time when they were spraying for met flies, and that toxic exposure that I had in my body, completely triggered my ITP or an autoimmunity. Can you help me understand how does that happen in the body? Why? And then we'll talk about where toxins are coming from. But why does toxicity or toxic or poisons trigger the immune system to turn on oneself?
Yeah. So there are at least 10 different ways or 10 different mechanisms chemicals can affect the body and result in autoimmunity. I'm going to talk only about 5 most important ones.
Oh, okay, good.
Number 1, toxic chemicals after entering into our body directly can affect the structure of our tissue and cells. So chemicals can bind to our tissues and cell membrane, causing cell death or apoptosis. When the cells die due to exposure to toxic chemicals, they release their contents such as the membrane proteins, then nuclear proteins, nucleolar proteins, mitochondria, DNA, name it, almost all the organelles. So what will happen to those components of cells? They are released, and immune system is going to attack them, and we make antibodies. So therefore, if you have anti-nuclear antibodies, anti-nucleolar antibodies, anti-mitochondrial antibodies, other antibodies in the blood, don't ask where these antibodies are coming from. They're coming because chemicals attacking your tissue.
So I'm so glad that we led with that, because we, in autoimmunity, many of us that have had tests run, the ANA test, that anti-nuclear antibody test, I never thought of it this way, and I appreciate it so much. So we'll use an insecticide, for example. It's meant to kill an entire being, right? It's meant to kill an ant or kill an earthworm or kill a ladybug or kill a butterfly. And it's shocking to me, and at fairly low doses. Like when we test bodies and we see how high of a level, because they're fat soluble, have accumulated into the human body. If we take the body weight of an ant versus the body weight of an average human being, and we look at the percentage of toxicity, like, I don't know how we're even surviving this. But what you said about it destroying the cell, so basically it destroys, a chemical comes in, it binds to the cell basically is surrounding, pops open, and itself comes out. Our immune system sees that as foreign, and it creates an antibody. Is that right?
Correct.
Wow. Let me ask you one more question on this.
Please.
When the chemicals are attached to the cell and it causes those cells to fracture and release the DNA and the mitochondria and the Golgi apparatus, all the stuff inside your cell, does that chemical then get voided, or does it get stored in the body?
I think the chemicals are bound to those components of the cells. And actually, that's why the immune system is going to attack them. The second one is chemicals and their metabolites, because chemicals get into the body, to the liver, they make some changes based on our enzymes. And those chemicals or their metabolites binds to human tissue covalently. And now the immune system is going to attack the self-tissue as if it is the invader.
Hey guys, it's Haylie again. Right about now, you might have questions that pertain to you and only to you. Let's continue the conversation. Go to HayliePomroy.com/member and get a free 30-day trial of my membership community. You're going to love this place. Post your questions, ask your questions, grab some downloads, and let's get you the help you deserve. When you say covalently, can you break that down for me a little bit? So you're saying the chemical comes in, our body tries to remodel it, and that then binds to our physical tissue, like a person that gets in the joint, or like in the lung or in the thyroid, that chemical binds to it, and then the body attacks the tissue that the chemical is adhered to.
Yes. So it's very well known that many chemicals, either they have negative ion or positive ions.
Got it.
Like aluminum, Al3, mercury, Ag+. So chemicals, either they have negative or positive.
Okay.
Proteins also, right? Amino acid. On one side, they have NH2, and the other side, they have COOH, negative or positive. So negative or positive from the chemicals bind covalently to each other and form, this is a word that I would like you to remember, form a neoantigen. Neoantigen, something that we did not have in our body before. Now the chemicals bind to that, form something new, which consists of our tissue plus the toxic chemicals. And obviously the immune system is going after that, try to destroy the invader, and then in the process attacking the tissue, and the tissue releases its contents, and again, the vicious cycle of autoimmunity will start.
So, for example, a person that has Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they can consume a chemical, put it on their body, drink it in coffee, use it in a cosmetic. It comes in and it binds with the tissue protein. In that case, maybe the thyroid or even the hormone, right? The T4
Exactly,
hormone. TPO, thyroid peroxidase. So it can bind, the chemical binds to that hormone, or it binds to the tissue or the gland. And then the body sees it as a or creates a neoantigen. The body creates an antigen, which an antigen is something that fights.
We have the antigen. Our tissue is in the antigen.
Got it.
But when the chemical binds to thyroid peroxidase or thyroid hormones, then that is neoantigen. The immune system doesn't go after TPO by itself. It goes after TPO if something is bound to that TPO.
Right. Okay. So that is the causing agent. The chemicals are what are causing our immune system to see our own body as a foreign invader.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Okay, we're on number 2 and I'm already blown away.
Okay, thank you. Number 3. And I have a publication from 25 years ago. Alteration of immune function by toxic chemicals. What do you learn from that title of article? That toxic chemicals can alter the integrity of the immune system.
Wow.
Cause malfunction of the immune system, and can affect our cell-mediated immunity, our humoral immunity, the antibody production, and everything.
So the toxic chemical can cause our own immune system to be dysfunctional. Is this why we're seeing people with autoimmune disorders have things like viral reactivation, where they can't handle a traditional herpes virus or Epstein-Barr virus, where they can't keep, our immune system isn't strong enough or functional enough when we have those chemical exposures?
Can go two different ways. One, chemical cause immune deficiency, meaning if we take CD4, CD8, we have more CD8, less CD4. It is like chemical AIDS.
Dr. Vojdani, you used a term that was called chemical AIDS, right? So what we mean by that is the autoimmune deficiency that we saw in the HIV and AIDS epidemic. What we're finding clinically is that just like you said, there is a certain immune deficiency that's happening in autoimmunity when the body is trying to reconcile the chemical exposure. So we have these chemical toxins, and they're making our immunology lab look like individuals that have AIDS. I mean, it's and we had an autoimmune client that came to us, flew into our clinic for immunology, and they had tested this person, I think, 17 times for HIV and AIDS. And Dr. Klimas and yourself and all of these phenomenal immunologists say, hold on a minute, it is an immune deficiency, but it's chemical based. I mean, I don't think people realize how far the chemical toxicity can push a body. It can push a body, and they're coining that term now, to the point of chemical AIDS, where your immune deficiency is so severe that it's that of an individual that was diagnosed with HIV and moved into a state of AIDS.
Haylie, 25 years ago, we called that chemical-induced immune deficiency syndrome. In situation like that, of course, because we don't have enough cells to take care of the viruses and bacteria, the virus will grow, bacteria will grow, and due to cross-reactivity between bacteria and viruses, causing autoimmunity. So at the same time, you can have immune deficiency and you can have autoimmunity. In other case, you can have only autoimmunity and no immune deficiency, meaning immune activation versus immune deficiency. Number 4, that our lymphocytes, their origin is from bone marrow.
Yes.
They migrate to to thymus, the thymus gland, to become T cells. It is in the thymus gland where, depends on the environment of the thymus gland, cells which know how to attack our human tissue before their complete development, they get eliminated by a computer. They do not allow autoreactive T cells to get in our blood. But the cells which are protecting us against bacteria, viruses, parasites, they have to get into blood and take care of us. But unfortunately, toxic chemicals can have some effect on thymus gland, and thymus will not be able to do its job, and therefore the autoreactive lymphocytes will escape into the blood, and then in the future, those autoreactive lymphocytes will attack our self-tissue, resulting in autoimmunity. And
Wow.
finally, chemicals can affect our gut structure, causing leaky gut, and leaky gut is the gateway to autoimmunity. So those were the 5.
Hey guys, it's Haylie, your host. I wanted to bring to your attention the possibility of coming in and doing a study with us. It is called the COVID UP study, and UP stands for Understanding the Post-Viral Phase. You have to be local in South Florida. There are 2 phases of this study. Let me give you the phone number. It's 305-275-5450. And the email is INIM research@nova.edu. We are currently looking for patients that are dealing with post-COVID, long COVID. We have 2 phases of that study. Please contact us and see if this could be an opportunity for you to get the care and information that you need.
Hola, soy la doctora Ana Palacio, de la Universidad de Miami. Me encantó participar en el podcast de hoy y quería invitarlos a considerar el estudio COVID UP. Este estudio está tratando de determinar por qué las personas no mejoran después de COVID. Si les interesa saber más de este estudio, por favor llamen al número 305-275-5450 o pueden escribir al email INIMresearch@nova.edu. Les agradezco mucho su interés y nos vemos la próxima vez.
I love that you just punctuated that. And I love that leaky gut syndrome is the gateway to autoimmunity. There is so much that I think we're just it's funny when you talk about you published a paper 25 years ago. I taught a class 27 years ago on leaky gut syndrome.
Wow.
And isn't that crazy? I was pregnant with my son. That's how I know exactly what it was. And I was just, stressing to people that if we don't address the gut, we can't reverse or heal the system, the ecosystem. But when so my first degree is in agriculture and soil sciences, and I always look at the gut as our ecological environment. It's like our soil in a way, right? It's what converts nutrients. It's what grows nutrients. And insecticides, pesticides, like what do we know? Defoliagers, right? What do we know that is impacted is the soil. It binds with copper, it binds with zinc, it depletes our bodies of nutrients. All the chemicals just trash our nutrient availability and bioavailability, but it also kills the actual tissue of the gut. I mean, it's like, what we use in a ditch, right? In agriculture that we're going to put water through, they'll put a bunch of defoliager in it and a bunch of, insecticides and pesticides in it. So it kills off all of the ecosystem. And then we're ingesting that same exact thing and we expect something different to happen within our bodies. Like we are a biological being. And these are things that are biotoxins.
Very well said. Thank you.
So when we look at those 5 things, so we look at the fact that, and I'm going to start with the gut, right? That if the gut is destroyed or damaged, that is a gateway for autoimmunity. We look at chemicals binding to the outer side of the cell, and basically our cells kind of leaking out prematurely, and our bodies seeing ourself as foreign. The one that I wanted to understand a little bit better is in the thymus. So we find in the thyroid, in the thymus, we find a lot of lead, mercury, arsenic, right? When we test those tissues, how does it inhibit our immune system from developing our fighter cells against the bad things? Like how our immune system's supposed to work. Your best friend gives you a sweet hug and she's got influenza A and she coughs all over you. And our immune system's supposed to say, influenza A is bad, we're going to get rid of it. And that's the end of that. But when we have toxic chemicals, our natural ability to fight normal things also inhibited?
Yes, it is like a child going to school. If the environment of the school is not healthy one, do you think that child can learn?
No.
So that's exactly what happens in the environment of the thymus gland. The thymus gland environment should have all its hormones, all the good stuff in order to regulate the undifferentiated cells to become differentiated. And then finally, some of them will be destroyed and the other will get into the blood in order to protect us against the invasion in the future.
That's amazing. And so our bodies are being really smart, actually, right? Because if we didn't have this massive immune dysfunction, immune suppression on one end and aggressive immune system on the other, we would be poisoned to death. I mean,
Yes.
it's just trying to survive this toxic exposure.
Yes. By the way, the name of this mechanism is tolerance mechanism. Tolerance. And there are 3 different levels of tolerance, but this is called central tolerance.
So basically, the body's just trying to survive.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, so we have to be kind to our bodies, you guys. If you're dealing with autoimmune disorders, we've got to be kind and loving and nurturing and I'm always telling you guys, let's identify and remove. Let's upregulate our natural processes and let's try to restore and re-inoculate. There's something like what our community has asked, and I've tried to explain this, but I would love to hear you always explain things so logically for me. Individuals that don't have celiac as an autoimmune disorder, but they have, like me, ITP or thyroid peroxidase or rheumatoid arthritis, why is gluten as a glycoprotein, why is gluten such a trigger? I always tell my community, it's like lighter fluid for any autoimmune or immune dysfunction that you have. Why is that such a trigger for so many people now?
Yeah. First of all, there are some new varieties of wheat.
Yes.
Secondly, we are removing the good stuff of the wheat and we leave the bad stuff, the sticky part,
Yes.
the glue part. So gluten, or actually wheat, has many gliadin and gluten peptides, non-gluten peptides. So there are many, many proteins and peptides in the wheat, Weger-agglutinin, many other proteins. All of them really are highly, highly antigenic.
Ooh.
When we do not digest them properly, if some of them left in the gut in the form of peptides, that peptides do not become amino acids, first they cause inflammation in the gut.
I'm gonna stop you because I want to no pun intended. I want to digest that a little bit. So when we look at the way wheat has been hybridized and crossbred right now, there are peptides, not just gluten, but when you say they're highly antigenic, what do you mean by antigenic? Does that mean that pro-inflammatory, or what does that mean by antigenic?
Antigenic meaning our antigen presenting cells. If they are undigested, they will present them to our T cell and T cells to B cell to produce antibody against them. You don't have to have celiac disease in order to do that.
So antigenic means they are seen as a foreign invader. They're
Yes.
seen as bad. And so an antigen is the bad guy and the antibody is the good guy, the hero. And so a lot of the peptides are making it too far into the gut and they're bad guys because their peptides are not being broken down into. So our gut immune system creates inflammation and starts attacking it?
Yes, they will be attacked in the gut. And then when there is leaky gut, they get into the blood. There are some enzymes in the blood called transglutaminase. Also, we have them in the gut. They will deamidate them. They will change their structure, which they become even more antigenic.
Yeah.
And then the immune system is attack them strongly, more strongly, and then this time will produce even 10 times more antibodies. And those antibodies can get into the thyroid, causing thyroid autoimmunity, can get into the heart, in the placenta, almost in every part of the body, including the brain. That's why so many autoimmune diseases, neuroautoimmune diseases, are associated with proteins in general.
It's so in the agriculture space when they started doing all of the hybridization, and I would say, you guys, they're breeding this so that it can't be fractured by hail, so that it's drought resistant, so that it's bug resistant. And I just thought, you've got to imagine when you choose something that the mastication's like hail, like fracturing it by hail. Your gut microbiome is the bugs attacking it, right? And so if we've adulterated a food to make it resistant to being broken down as a shield of armor at best, right? Besides the amino acids and peptide ratios being totally distorted now, completely distorted. Like the level of certain peptides in the wheat that we have today versus the wheat that we had even 20 years ago. The ratios of those peptides and amino acids are so distorted. Our gut is not prepared, right, to break it down. And that's if everything above works really well. The pancreas, the gallbladder's intact, right? You're chewing really well. I appreciate that. In our working towards wellness, we're constantly trying to look at how the liver detoxifies and how the gut heals. I mean, we've seen, there's a lot of cleanses where it's like, get rid of everything bad. Okay, fine. Or strip your body down. Detox is extremely nutrient dependent. So we try to flood the body with nutrients. But can you help me understand the connection between the gut microbiome and the liver's detoxification pathways? I know anatomically there's, the portal vein, but like how do those two connect? We see clinically, I can't fix things if I don't address those two symbiotically. But why from an immune system? What's happening in like phase 2 of liver detox, and how is that impacting what comes down into the gut?
Okay, there are several answers for that. But before getting into that I would like to emphasize that it's much, much easier to take digestive enzymes if you don't digest your peptides to become amino acids.
Yeah.
So I do recommend that.
Yes.
It is easy to take probiotics. It is very easy to take vitamin D, for example. It is very easy to take vitamin A because those are certain components that can regulate special type of cells in our gut called regulatory T cell to regulate the gut immune function. However, that's easy to do.
Right.
But to do detoxification of the body from chemicals, honestly, it's not that easy.
Right.
You may be able to remove heavy metals with chelation, but we have thousands and thousands and thousands of chemicals. Some of them are in our body, as you said before, that some of them are fat soluble. I don't think you can remove those chemicals by doing chelation because they covalently bound to our tissue.
Right.
And so therefore, the only choice we have is to empower our immune system, hopefully the phagocytes, the monocytes, hopefully I'm saying, eventually we'll be able to get rid of some of those toxic chemicals. I'm sure you know that there are some chemicals stays in our body 40 years, 50 years, and longer. The best examples, I have some I wrote in here, that like polyfluorinated substances. There are 10,000s of different of this type of chemicals who get soluble, in the tissue. So again, not very easy to detoxify the body from toxic chemicals.
A lot of individuals are coming to us and we're working on remodeling the structure of the body, right? Improving the bone density, burning stored fat, developing lean muscle. And I always tell people, when you're in, whether it's a weight loss mode or a muscle building mode or improving bone density, that is the perfect time to bind and upregulate your detoxification. Because like you talked about, they bind to our tissue. So it hurts my heart when I watch someone use a toxic supplement or a toxic drug or a toxic food, right? Something laden with additives and preservatives as a diet product to lose fat, because that's where we store so many of our fat soluble toxins. But I think, a lot of people ask me, like, why am I such a proponent for when I'm remodeling a physical structure of a body, whether it's through weight loss or it's through muscle build or it's through healing the skin with psoriasis or eczema? Why do I always oscillate in strategic detoxification, upregulation protocols in that process? And that's because if it's going to be recirculated in the blood, I want to snatch everything that I can and try to get it gone. So that's that push, pull, rebuild method that I think why we have success in moving the scale, but really moving the health needle. That's I think, people ask me all the time, why? And I think some of that. So, and we focus on the liver and the gut, and the kidneys and the lymph and the lungs. But I would love to hear your perspective on why the liver is such a superhero in autoimmunity and toxic based triggers.
Liver is the most instrumental for detoxification and of course for our immune system as well. And I'll give you examples. The liver has the capacity to detoxify chemicals through cytochrome P450, phase 1, phase 2, and all of that. And hopefully we'll get rid of them. But depends how much chemicals in our body. Our liver cannot work endless to remove toxic chemicals. From immunology aspect point of view, we know that when too many antigens are in our body, we produce too many antibodies. Antigen plus antibody form immune complexes, highly inflammatory. And the job of Kupffer cells in the liver is to remove those immune complexes. But in the presence of toxic chemicals, I don't think liver will be able to remove all these immune complexes. And what will happen to those immune complexes? They will get to our joint, cause joint inflammation in the kidney damage under the skin, and other part of the body initiate autoimmune reactivity. So it's not really that easy. The best way is to minimize exposure to toxic chemicals. And here I would like to interject also, ladies who are using non-organic cosmetics,
Yes.
please think about that. In my opinion, I apologize if I'm going to mention this, that one of the major reasons we have so many autoimmunity in the females versus males, I believe, is the use or overuse of toxic chemicals in the cosmetics. Do you want to add to that?
I know. I'm so glad that you say that. The skin is the largest organ in the body. And when we apply toxic chemicals to the skin, it's directly absorbed into the lymphatics, into our bloodstream. I'm so grateful that you said that. We work so hard to try to identify clean products. And I'm going to just throw this out here. Part of what's happening, so they say 81% of autoimmunity is in our female population. And Dr. Vojdani, I love that you said you feel like, but we also have tampons and sanitary napkins that are just laden with chemicals that are exposed to our bodies, right? Or within our bodies. Deodorants, right? Lipsticks. And when we look at, if you were to drink what's on the label, it would be in the part of Home Depot where they keep the poisons, right? Where they keep the Roundup. What is in our cosmetics is just terrible and scary. And I want to throw one little thing in there that's just because I'm very frustrated about it right now, is a lot of the cosmetics and the supplements, natural health products, have recently been purchased by big pharma and big food, right? So the companies that make Roundup that are now making your multivitamin. The companies that make, other pharmaceuticals are now making your vitamin C. And so the one thing that's a trigger for me is, when we talked about wheat, I want to talk about corn a little bit. Being an Aggie, I want, if we can, finish up with that. So corn is also one of those things that is so hard for the body to break down and digest, and it causes such an inflammatory gut response. And 98% of the vitamin C in the United States is corn derived. And so we take these supplements, right, that are we only use a non-corn derived. I couldn't take it otherwise. It's not easy to find. It's not easy to source. Quite frankly, it's my nemesis, and it's frustrating to manufacture it. But I couldn't take it with my autoimmune disorder. And yet I know that vitamin C contributes so much to supporting the immune system. Can you talk to me a little bit about why vitamin C is so important, or why that, and I know we get it in our foods. We are one of the only species that can't make our own.
As an immunologist, I believe if there is single factor in the nature, in the fruits and vegetables, and of course in the former supplement, that is vitamin C. You may ask me why? Because I have done a lot of work on the role of natural killer cells, which are cells of the immune system, take care of stressed cells in our body, take care of viruses or viral infected cells, and taking care of cancer. These natural killer cells. The only single factor efficiently can activate natural killer cell, that is vitamin C.
Right.
Again, I published 4 different articles started from between 20 to 25 years ago.
Yes.
Where on Friday night, we took several athletes and we gave them between 500 milligrams to 5 grams of oral chewable vitamin C. And then we measured the natural killer cell activity every 4 hours. Guess what? 16 hours after chewing even 500 milligrams of vitamin C or 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, their natural killer cells, in close to 90% of them, went up by 3 to 10 folds.
Wow.
I don't believe if there is any single factor can do that job. And so therefore, I believe vitamin C is one of the most important factor for our immune function.
I'm so glad that you say that. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated about what's happening with the adulteration of supplements right now, is because the science has been there with vitamin C and natural killer cells and immune modulation and antiviral components of it. And then we had vitamin C suddenly all of a sudden move into a petroleum and corn derived in most of the supplement companies. So I want people to just be aware, like think about what you do, where you buy it, where you get it, because nothing frustrates me more than something that's supposed to help you being adulterated by the chemical industry, right? Or
So let me add, I apologize.
Yes.
So your natural killer cells do not like pesticides. Your natural killer cells do not like molds and mycotoxins in the corn.
Yes.
So they don't like any toxic chemicals. They like pure vitamin C, not vitamin C plus all these toxic chemicals. Please continue.
No, I'm yes. And again, that's one that's hurting my heart. It's like, you should take vitamin C. And then these companies buy vitamin C's and they adulterate them with something that causes suppression of natural killer cells, corn, and leaky gut, corn, and inflammation, corn, right? And then they don't say, on the label, it should say, hey, this is a great brand of vitamin C that's going to cause you leaky gut inflammation. And then they diss the science, but they're using an adulterated vitamin C. So I'm gonna let that one go, but I really appreciate you addressing that with me. I'm on a kick about a sheep in wolves clothing, right? I'm sorry, a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's my dyslexia coming through. In that space of, everybody jumping on the bandwagon, but you've got to make sure that it's clean and it's good. So it sounds it sounds to me like toxins are everywhere. And the best thing that we can do is support this right here, our immune system, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We have no choice.
Okay. We have no choice. I love that you said that. We have no choice. We do have a choice. The choice is to make the choice to detox, upregulate your detoxification, do active cleansing, meaning that, your cleansing, go under your pantry in the kitchen. So we do house detoxes for people. And Dr. Vojdani, I cannot tell you the amount of Raid and pesticides and sometimes leftover paint, things that are under these cabinets that they're exposed to right in their kitchen, right, where they're eating and cleaning foods. But I want to end with just saying that right now we're dealing with so many people in North Carolina that are dealing with mold and mycotoxin toxicity. And I'm in California, we're in California, that are dealing with the fires right now. Do you think this stress coupled with toxic exposure is going to cause a pandemic of autoimmunity?
Yes, again, if I'll go back to count the 5 major factors of autoimmunity, number 1 is stress.
Yeah.
Exposure to toxic chemicals, undigested food, pathogens, and then leaky gut. All of those are on the rise. We know leaky gut is almost in every other person. So unfortunately, if we'll continue like this, the autoimmunity will continue to be on the rise as it happened in the past 20 to 30 years.
Right. Right. Well, I so appreciate you being a warrior for health with me on this journey. When I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, I genuinely thought it was a death sentence. I mean, I really did. I felt awful. The drugs made it 10 times worse. And I didn't have a choice but to learn how to support this, right? Support my body. I can't control every aspect of the environment, but I can make some good choices, right? But what I can do is nourish to flourish. And this environment's not going away. The stress isn't going away. And so we have to be more resilient. And I love and I want to thank you for all the knowledge, but also really helping us clinically with the diagnostic aspect, because everybody's body is different. And through the labs that you provide for us, right, we're able to understand how to shorten the gap between a person whose body's in crisis with autoimmunity and for them to have a health victory. And through your diagnostics and research, it's like we can do this for people. We're going to pull up stages of autoimmunity, guys. So what I want you to understand is we all want to be in this green place. If you're in the red place, our goal is to set up a treatment plan and a protocol. That's why we have the community, right? To get you to reverse and be back into green. It is, and Dr. Klimas always says this, I have witnessed this within my own life. It is absolutely possible to be outrageously healthy.
Haylie, I believe that we should start as early as possible.
Yes.
We should start at the yellow.
Yes.
When you have some antibodies and rheumatology is telling you, I don't know, really, these are non-specific. For
Right.
me, they are specific. So therefore, try to detect your autoimmune reactivity at the yellow, at the latest in the orange. But sometimes if you get to the red, I'm sorry, it may be too late.
So, Dr. Vojdani, if someone's being kind of gaslit in their medical appointment and they're being told, like, maybe this could ultimately turn into an autoimmune disorder, we're not really sure that, well, first of all, half the time they're not running the specific antibodies. So, I believe that they should have this testing done as part of their annual physical. But what specific test is it through Cyrex or which
Well,
lab would help
there are
us
two
define
tests.
this?
There are two tests that I sincerely believe should be part of annual testing or
Me
checkup.
too.
Okay.
Yes.
One of them is autoimmune panel. Okay. Anti-nuclear antibody, ENA, rheumatoid factor, immune complexes, actin, mitochondrial antibodies. And then the second one that not many people pay attention to that. And that is lymphocyte map to look at your cell-mediated immunity, whether you or not you are in the stage of immune deficiency or autoimmunity, how your natural killer cells are working. And so therefore, those two tests, one is done at the immunosciences lab, the autoimmune panel. The second test is done at Cyrex Laboratories called lymphocyte map.
So, Dr. Vojdani, the lymphocyte map, and I'll just share this with our community, is anybody that's had COVID or was vaccinated for COVID. We are running this every single time because and not just the spike protein, there's been a lot of other things that we've now identified. We've been researching a very large population with long COVID, but also looking at a population that they fall into the typical healthy, right? Or
Yeah.
in a control setting. But we are finding and we've run your lymphocyte map, for years before. We're in Neuro-Immunology, right? We look at this. People come in and they're sick. It's really shocking to me how we're seeing these precursors, people that are even in stage 2 and sometimes tipping into stage 3 that aren't being diagnosed autoimmune. But the earlier we can jump in and do interventions, the quicker we can reverse it. But there was just this massive proliferation of abnormal labs after COVID. And that lymphocyte map, we'll run a traditional CBC and a chem screen and everything will look normal. And we'll do a lymphocyte map. And I mean, it's a nightmare. And if we didn't do that, we would have no idea.
Yeah. And the beauty of lymphocyte map is that can guide you for correct treatment, which supplements to take, sometimes even medication. So it is really highly, highly helpful, not only helping to detect autoimmunity or immune deficiency, but also can guide you how to treat your patient.
And Dr. Vojdani, can someone have this run through like Rupa?
Yes, Cyrex is part of Rupa, absolutely.
So now, guys, one of the things and I'll get you guys all the contact information, but so many times we had to have people that would have to beg their doctors to run this, right?
Yes.
But now Rupa has that feature where you can self-advocate, right? You can have, so any of you can have this run, and then they have a doctor review it before they release the results to you. But it's, so if, and I'll put this in our community. But the lymphocyte map has been huge. And then the autoimmunity panel, can that one also be done directly or how?
Yes, we are part of Rupa. Immunosciences Lab is part of Rupa, and we have very close relationship. We give webinars on their behalf.
Yes.
So
we
are very active.
Yeah. So finally, now you guys can have access. So I used to have to beg, steal, borrow, deliver, goodies to my hematologist to get labs run. I mean, to get a flow cytometry was like an act of Congress, or even worse now. But it was so hard, and it makes me really, really happy. So we traditionally look at this. It's a very, very important in putting together a protocol. So I'm so glad you brought those up, because I'll make those accessible to you guys. And then in our community at HayliePomroy.com/member, we get together and we chat about it, which is really cool. So Dr. Vojdani, you might not know this, but we have this amazing community. And when people get done, like with their doctor's appointments, and or they get a bunch of labs back. We have this community where we all come together and we talk about it because, someone in Kansas or someone in New York or someone in LA has had an common experience, but from a different perspective. And so it's like this big, huge think tank, right?
I love that. I really love that. I wish I could come and be part of your meeting.
Anytime. You could jump in anytime. I would love for you to be in there. Hey guys, I just heard he was just voluntold that he's now one part of us. So, but that is why we have it and why I just feel so grateful and fortunate to have you jump in. I consider you one of my tremendous mentors and for years before I had the honor of meeting you, I was running your labs. I didn't know, that we would have this kind of connection, but it was instrumental in me getting the data and the information to create the programs that I've created for people that are dealing with autoimmunity, to create the programs that I've created for people that are doing detoxification, to reduce neuroinflammation. It wasn't just plucked, out of the air or out of the universe. It was by being able to look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different labs and different experiences to try to remodel protocols and model protocols that could help get us from red to green. So we all want to shorten that gap, right? It was a struggle.
Yes.
It's been a health victory for me. I've been able to, so fortunate to walk that journey with so many people. But I just want to thank you. Please come back.
Thank you so much for all those great words, and it is my honor.
We will be talking again soon, guys. Dr. Vojdani, thank you for being here.
Thank
you guys
you.
Make sure you jump into our community, ask questions, right? When we do these podcasts, they are for you. They are for you, they are by you, and they are designed to shorten the distance between you coming from where you're at in your health struggle to where you deserve to be in your health victory.